I have no slides. You guys are going to help me create a mind map. Okay, so this is a very interactive session. There will be mics around, or you can yell things out. And I literally do not have any slides. I am an experienced director of product marketing who's been in, as he mentioned, in product management, sales engineering, and I've done a bunch of other roles over the course of my life. So I probably will add some content myself to it, of course. But really, my goal here, and this is great after lunch because people want to be comatose, but no, you have to actually join me in building a mind map. And we can discuss, I use mind maps all the time, by the way. That's the one other thing I'll say on mind maps. I use them to take notes in meetings. I use them for sales enablement. I might hit on that later on, we'll see. If people want to talk to me afterwards, feel free. I'm also based in Cambridge, so I'm local. But let's get started. I just put sales enablement up here, and I put who. So who's involved in sales enablement? You guys tell me. Sales? All right. Sales. Yeah, sure. How's that look? So, next. Product management. I'll just put PM. Who else? And by the way, we're going to focus this on product marketing in a minute, but I wanted to first start off broad with just sort of who the roles are, and then we can discuss what our specific role is in product marketing as product marketing as part of sales enablement. So the other one I would put, of course, is us. I can add some myself. You guys don't have to add everything here. And for sales, there's an interesting thing I always think about. What do we mean by sales? I mean, I would say direct. That's what most people think of when they think of sales. The direct sellers. But what else? Channel. That's a great one too. Sales engineers. So direct. Channel. And SE. Anything else? Okay, yep, depends on the size of the company, all that type of stuff. There's CS and support, which I'll put support on here, just.
Also sales ops.
Sales ops. So there's a lot of people, we can stop on this one for now, but there's a lot of people to train, first of all, if you think about that. And I would also say that they're involved in the training themselves too, right? So we'll keep going with that, but we can do the who for a while, right? I don't want to spend the whole time on the who. So what will be next when we think about the 5 whys? How about why itself? Or the 5 questions, right, is what I should say. And why? I don't want to be so broad for why we do sales enablement because that's a very broad topic. I think most people know that. I think what I want to think about here is why are PMMs involved in sales enablement? Yep.
Can I add what is prospects for 400, please?
What?
Prospects, please.
Oh, prospects?
Yeah, I think it's core to the why that PMM knows the user,
Okay.
the buyer, and the first degree of sales enablement is the seller, and we nailed that. Nice job, room. But we're really building it for them to then bring it to second degree later in the customer.
Yeah, and I think of that as part of the why because we want to understand the prospects. So that's a great one for why is because we want to understand the prospects. Why else does product marketing get involved in sales enablement? Because the prospects could be done by the sales team or other people. So, anyone else have things? Yep. What? Competition. So sometimes we are the people who know all about the competition, right?
Product marketing knows about value proposition.
Value prop. I would also put, as a lesser one to some extent, but the same idea, we know the messaging, which I think matters somewhat in terms of that. A lot. Yep. I put the brand probably under here. I mean, sometimes I move these things around afterwards as I start playing with things when I build mind maps, but generally in the why. So there's a lot involved with messaging, brand, competition, prospects. Those are all very interesting parts to it, right? I think, yep.
Voice of the customer?
Voice of the customer. I'd put that here probably. If I could learn how to type, it'd be an amazing thing. Anything else on the why? Make money. Revenue generation. Well, actually, you said two different things: revenue generation and product market fit. Let's put product market fit right here. Again, I'm not, these mind maps, I always move things around later, but I think that kind of fits under part of the value prop.
Sales acceleration, like deal acceleration.
Deal acceleration. Yep. That's a big part of it, right? Another part on that same thing is, for me at least, is deal growth. And that sort of hits on what you hit a minute ago. Sometimes it's cross-selling, or things like cross-selling, right? It depends upon your particular company and what you do. But sometimes it's to say, you bought this product, you're going to buy this other product. And I think that's all part of that same thing about deal acceleration conceptually. Yes, you do?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it's more of an umbrella thing, but education, I mean, like, identifying those knowledge gaps.
Sure. Education is definitely part of it. So we can keep going this again for a while. These things are fun. I spent hours working with different people doing these types of things, but we just identified the who and the why. What's the next question we should ask? What? That's a good one. So, what do people say for the what? If I have to start, I'll start, but one is content. We've been discussing content earlier, and context. That's part of what we enable them on is the content, right?
Product story.
Product story. Market trends, that's a good one. One second, I just have to type it in. Yep, what? Sales tools. I would argue that's definitely part of sales enablement. Whether that's part of product marketing's job in sales enablement, not always, right? Usually that's part of like marketing operations or sales operations, depending on how big your company is. But it's a good one as part of sales enablement in general, for sure. Competitive intelligence. We sort of got that in the why, but these things do cross-pollinate, so. And you can draw lines between things. By the way, I'm using MindMap, which is a free mind mapping tool. There are other ones out there, some you can buy, whatever else. I use these all the time. Yep. Context, use cases, right? I'll put that under content in general. And obviously we got a whole spiel about context with content in the last session or 2 sessions ago, something like that. So it's great to see that coming in here. I think that's key. So we have the why, we have the how, we have the whom. What's another question in the 5 whys? When. There's when and there's how, right? So we'll do when. When do you do sales enablement as a product marketer? Okay, so we have a couple different things here. Product launches, constantly. Right? New employee onboarding, that's a good one. And by the way, that changes a little bit the sales enablement that you do, right? I'll just do sales kickoff. I'll kind of put that in here. It's not the same thing, but repositioning. So there's lots of good times to do it, right? Okay, so market. I probably have to group some of these, but when I do this on the fly, this is what happens. Anything I missed? I mean, so my point here is this. There's a lot to do, obviously, in sales enablement. We all know that. There's a lot of times when you can do it. I can give some examples myself. We have a pretty experienced sales team, and I was pretty new at my current company. I've only been there 3 months. So it wasn't my job necessarily to tell them about the product. Now, that is, in many cases, the job for if you're doing a new person, right? But I do think that I was helping them with the messaging and how to cross-sell, because we have a few different products. Because a lot of them were getting too stovepiped into one specific product, always pitching a certain way, doing certain things. Now, this kind of gets into, by the way, what's the one we're missing? The question we're missing. How? People have stuff for how. I hinted at it a couple seconds ago. Anyone? Everyone's getting quiet all of a sudden. Okay, so yes. We'll just say digestible content, right? And I totally agree that salespeople don't tend to read those 10-page white papers you do. They don't. They might read the executive brief in some cases. Most times, though, they care about how do they close a deal based upon something, right? They don't need to be product experts. Now, the sales engineers might, but they usually already know most of the stuff. So they're also not very interested. I'm a former sales engineer for 10 years, and I can tell you I didn't spend time reading our white papers. Unless there was something very specific about a new topic, something that I really wanted to learn that I didn't know. And usually then I've already done the research on it. So digestible content is critical. How else? What? Yep. So, by the way, you're hitting an interesting point that we haven't really discussed here. This is a two-way street, I think. It's not just us telling them stuff. They have to give us feedback, right? Because they know what's happening in the ground. I just had a great call with one of my sales guys who was saying, I can't sell this product in this way. And we had a discussion about what's a better way, but he also gave me a lot of info for why. And I was going back to product management even to say that. So I think that there's customer sales interviews, right? There's always that part of it, and I think that it's important to consider this as a two-way street. And, I learn a lot from our sales engineers because they're the ones who know the product deeper. Sometimes they get too deep into things, and that's a whole different story. Other things in terms of the how. Demo, live training. I think those are kind of similar, but yeah, I think of that as part of the content, but I definitely agree with you. I love role playing actually. I just did. So certification was just mentioned. Win-loss. I love win-losses when you can get them, right? It's always a tough one. And that I think of as kind of being part of the customer sales interview. So what I'm trying to say here, I mean, by the way, one of my favorite is role playing because they get into it, they understand it. Sometimes I'll play the role of the customer and say to them, how would you pitch this thing to me? And then we'll switch and we'll see. Now that a lot of this is kind of one-to-one versus one-to-many. It might be in a small group of 4 or 5. Sometimes you do presentations to the whole group because some message changing's happening. These are all interesting things to me because when we have to start mapping these things together, right? Because when we talk about the why and the what and all these things, if we're talking about the what, for instance, the what, things like market trends, product story, some of those really can be done in larger groups. Some things can't. Helping a new salesperson, you don't want to bore the rest of the sales team with that, right? So what have we missed so far? Anything we've missed so far in all of this? I know they're a little small now because I'm trying to show you a larger view of it. What? Measurement and KPIs. So where does that fit in sales enablement? Okay. So goals for the sales enablement program. I'm trying to think where to fit that here, but we can talk about, we'll put it as a separate one for now. It's always a tough thing to measure, at least in small companies I've been at most recently. When I was at IBM, yeah, I mean, they had lots of tools. Whether or not they're all correct or not is a totally different matter. But my more recent companies being startups, it's always tough to say what sales enablement means other than a salesperson saying, hey, this helped me close something. Anything else on these? Yep.
In the what, I think for content, maybe we delineate internal content versus external. We do a lot of like wikis and just general teaching, best practices, strategies, but then we have to teach sellers how to use the actual end content.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple different types of internal content, right? There's the things you sort of present and have discussions, which is a little different. And then I used to create like a wiki internally where we did, at my last company more than my current company. And I loved it because one of the biggest problems you have with sales is they're deal driven. In other words, if a certain product or certain feature set isn't something they're looking at right now for a deal, they could care less. They're not going to learn it. I don't blame them for that, by the way. Right? That's their job. I've run into that a lot. So what happens? One sales guy asks me for something. I say, well, these are the content that makes sense for that. I put it in a wiki. And then when another salesperson comes up and pings me and says, hey, I need that same thing. It doesn't say I need that same thing. I need this. And I already created it. I could just point them at that particular page and say, here, go at it. Because I got tired of repeating myself over and over again. And so that's something I did. And actually, a lot of the sales guys loved that because they said, I can get this in my context. I'll go look at the page before I come to you. And if I have questions, I'll come back to you after that. So that's a great one. I love wikis. I haven't done it yet at my current company. It's only been there 3 months. But my last company, I had a large wiki I built on that topic. That was all for sales. Anything else we're missing here? By the way, this file I'll save off as a ping and I'll give it to the PMA so everyone can see it. Yep.
Yeah, and it kind of goes off of what you just said, but our biggest problem with sales enablement right now is access. So it's like access and scalability. We've got lots of content, but it's like, how do you give it to them on a regular basis, right?
Well, I think, and I think that also boils down to not just access, but finding it, context.
Yeah.
And that's why, like I could show it to you, but I had this whole, I had my last company, a great set of resources, tons of them, and you could search them and you could do certain things on them that were external. But for the salespeople, that was always tough because it wasn't necessarily about, they wanted to know which 5 pieces of content matter for this industry, for this topic, for this thing. And that's why I started creating those wikis. It's not just wikis, there are other ways you can do it, but I'm saying if you can create a simple list. I started off with a spreadsheet that had it, and then I said I'm going to turn this into a wiki because I can put better descriptions. And then I started linking directly to the assets and plugging that in. And some stuff I was internal only because we wanted to talk about a competitor. I had competitive information maybe that I didn't do public because I could put that in the wiki and link to it somewhere. So that's exactly what I started to do. And then when other ones started bugging me, I'm like, I just point them at that. The other thing is, we talked earlier about competitive, and we just had a whole session on it, so I'm not going to spend long on that. But I find sometimes doing an initial analysis of some competitors is helpful, and then doing a deeper dive into the 4 or 5 that you care about. Because sales guys ask you about one, and sometimes they say, look, I don't have that. But I do a quick website analysis to see how close they are. And then I save those as simple SWOTs, just one slide at a time per competitor. So things like that I found really useful. I have a whole slot of like 20 of them, even though we only care about 5 or so. I agree completely that there are certain ones you deep dive on. So, but that's just me. I love things like SWOT charts and other elements like that as part of my brief competitive analysis, even if you want to dive deeper with a clue or something like that, into that. Any other things? Yep, Steve?
I think like kind of comes for a long time. The thing that keeps hitting me is like you can organize content, you can give it context, you can put it in the sales portal, and you can point salespeople to pages and say you can go down here and find it on this page, and you still get the same questions. I feel maybe on one hand there's who knows what causes that to change, but I think maybe training salespeople on actually how to find the resources that they have at their disposal and doing it on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that there's as sort of part of the how, there's this whole, I mean, someone mentioned certification here, but in general, there's a training.
How to find stuff, how to get what you need.
Yeah, and we didn't discuss sales playbooks, but sales playbooks are sort of, were mentioned earlier in one of the earlier sessions today. And I think they're also critical, particularly, so right now I'm in a small enough company that, we only have so many sellers, it's not that bad. But in some companies that have been in the past, you really had to give them a playbook, or else you were in trouble. So that's my 2 cents on that. I agree completely that it was frustrating. It's like IBM, they're always asking you for stuff, even if they had this whole setup of wikis and everything else, they'd still, and they wouldn't know to ask you, so they ask somebody else, and then if they get the wrong answer, or they get something, we don't do that, and then they'd finally come to me and find out, yeah, we support that. We didn't support it a year ago, we do now. Those types of things, right? What's context? We have sales guys right now in my current company talking about stuff, but it's not going to be released for a few months, because product management's been talking about these cool features. And going, how far do we go? Right? Those are all kind of things to think about. But that's just me. Anything else here? I mean,
Wonder how the services to listen to recorded calls, whether it's just
Ooh.
recording or gong or really silent.
okay. That's sort of, and I could probably almost do another section all on like collecting data from sales. I think that's probably a separate one on this, and I could probably put some of those groupings in there because there's the inbound and the outbound, right? And that's part of what that is the inbound versus the outbound is the content we create and all those types of things. But that's just my 2 cents on that. Anything else? Yep.
I can see personas.
Personas.
And I think it's probably, for me, I see like the biggest sales miss is the raw wrong message to the wrong person, or the right message to the wrong person. Like if they got one thing right, it's just know who you're talking to.
I totally agree with you. And sometimes, yeah, they don't know what they should say to whom. And also with these people, we talk about buying groups rather than one buyer. So you start to get into that whole thing of like they should be talking different things to different people. Sometimes it's about a different product, sometimes about the functionality, and sometimes it's about not necessarily functionality of product, but the messaging in general. So that is a complex thing that's a whole nother topic. But I agree that someone earlier mentioned use cases. And when I talk about use cases, they should be persona-based, right? In my mind. Because different personas don't care about this. They may care about the same thing to some extent, but they really should be. But they don't care about it in the same way. You know, we deal with CIOs, we deal with then practitioners who are implementing our tool. They have completely different needs. And they both might be in the buyer cycle because practitioners are the ones who say, it's easy to use, it's this, it's that. CIOs care about the data that comes out from it. They're both in the buying cycle. The CIO can't just say, you're going to use this. The guy says, well, it's unusable to me. I can't do it. Those types of things. Anything else? I mean, we're getting into the how quite a bit here, which is good. I expected that.
The skills, resources, and tools to properly implement self-management.
Skills, resources, and tools. Well, I'll put that probably here and put that as tooling, and then under that I'd put skills. And resources. But that is a good point. You need all the right tooling with skills and resources. Depends on the size of the team. You've heard different presentations here about different types of ones. We use an asset repository that was external mostly, even though you could make some things internal. At my last company, it was great for searching. That helped some. The wikis are also, I would argue, tools. The competitive, like Blue, also part of it. So all those different things are all tools in your toolbox to help you do that. I know we have 2 minutes left, so any other things here? And I probably won't do questions after, only because this is all questions.
How about the customer journey, the right content at the right stage?
Customer journey, I love that. That's a big one. And would that be in, I guess that's in the how again, but I mean, yeah, it might be, I'll put what actually? Yeah, we usually do something along the lines of a customer journey, I think, is in the what, and then you think through the personas that are in those steps as you step through there. So, which is in the how. This which things get applied type of thing is my thought process on that, but so.
Under what for a brand story? Like the elevator pitch and they say,
I like it. Again, I wouldn't have come up with all this myself, so that's why I love these sessions. It gives me things to think about, as well as everybody else. I had some portion of it thought through, but I don't ever plan these things out completely, because they're fun. They're more fun that way. So, I know we're just about out of time. Anyone have one or two more? Nope?
All right, awesome.
I
Thank
think
you, Martin.